Okay, so this is our second video in what we're going to do a three-part series of the gut microbiome, the gut-brain axis. Why do we care? So for our kiddos with autism, the reason we care, if you look at the earlier video that explains what the gut microbiome is and some of the effects of it, we're going to go over why we do testing and why we care. So we do testing. It is an optional test. It's an add-on test for some packages. For some, it's included. It's a stool test. And so the stool is what we call, it's a GI map. That's the company, the name of the company that does our testing. That's what they call it, the GI map. Basically what it's doing is it's actually looking at what are the microbes, what are the viruses, are there parasites, are there worms, are there things that we should be concerned about? And are there things that are not so concerning? They're normal bacteria, but they're overgrown or they're low in the population. So we do the testing to get a really good look at what's going on inside the gut. And the testing that we do also looks at different enzymes that are secreted when there are a certain type of population of bacteria. These enzymes, like beta-glucuronidase, they can cause inflammation in the gut. It looks at levels, inflammatory marker levels like calprotectin, again, another inflammatory marker of what's going on in the gut. We look at zonulin levels. What is zonulin? It is a protein that is between the tight junctions, which is the lining, the intestinal lining cells. So we have proteins that help hold those together. Zonulin is one of those. When we're introducing foods, when the gut has different imbalances, you will see zonulin increase in the stool. Why? That protein is breaking. And the cells are becoming now permeable, leaky. So the cells, instead of being nice and tight, they're slowly separating in multiple areas, allowing the zonulin to be in the stool and indicating to us that we've got a leaky gut. Some foods, which is why a lot of times we say, hey, try a gluten-free diet. Gluten, especially the gluten in the US, because gluten is it's a protein found in wheat. So the wheat in the US is hybridized to allow it to grow in a certain way. That hybridization process makes the content of gluten higher in the US in our wheat. So then we're eating these products that have really high gluten content, and gluten is one of the factors, one of the foods that is known to cause this breakage of zonulin. So parents will say, hey, but I did the gluten-free diet, I didn't notice anything. That's why the testing is so important, is because we actually see what's going on in the gut. And we can say, well, you might not externally notice anything, but internally we're noticing benefits, because we'll do a pre-test, we'll do 90 days of supplements, we'll do a post-test. Usually 90 days isn't enough. We probably need a good 6 months, sometimes longer, but it's a start to say, hey, are we going in the right direction? So that's why the pre-test, post-test. But that's why gluten-free diets can be so popular amongst kiddos with autism, as well as dairy, because for many, dairy is very inflammatory, which then we'll see the inflammatory markers on the testing. Along with other things like the pancreatic elastase levels. Those are important because it's an indication that we're breaking down food correctly. When you have sufficient levels of pancreatic elastase, you can actually break down the food and absorb the nutrients that you need that feed these good bacteria. And so we check that as well in the testing. And so much of what I see, it's not just pathogenic organisms, but it's a lot of kiddos with overgrowth in some big areas, and undergrowths in others. And so when that is imbalanced in that way, we're going to get potential for more symptoms with behavior, with irritability, with mood, with learning, with sleep. Everything is affected by the gut. Our testing also includes, outside of the gut microbiome, our testing, we do also look at environmental toxins, heavy metals, molds. Reason being is that the stem cells can do a lot, but they're not going to help remove all these things. They can help reduce inflammation. There's a lot of ways in which they can help, but if we can fix these things, then we can let the stem cells work in other areas. They don't have to work in trying to decrease the inflammation that's coming from the gut, the inflammation that's coming from the heavy metals, molds, toxins. So it's a joint effort, and that's why we do the testing and highly recommend it for all of our families.